Well, hello guys, this is Youlostbro, and today we have a we will have a heads up Zoom cash game coaching session, and we'll be reviewing a session I played like 2 months ago. I really don't remember too much about these hands, but we actually reviewed some of these last, not the same ones, but some hands from the same session last week in our Finnish coaching session, and there were plenty of mistakes that I did. Oh, there's actually a tiny bit of well, I don't care. Yeah, the player lobby is not as it is supposed to be, but let's see if I manage to change it quickly. But I can't do it. No, I can't. Okay. Never mind. So yeah, we'll be reviewing some of the hands. I'm pretty tired to begin. Actually, I have been having a 2 or 3 week long flu, and now I'm finally getting better, and I actually started a squat challenge that few Finns have been doing on the Finnish forum, and I actually just like 5 minutes ago, 3 minutes ago, finished my 2 days 55 squats. So it's a good way to begin the coaching. So yeah, let's review the hands, and if you have any questions or comments, feel free to post a comment to. I'll mute the video. Feel free to post a comment to our chat, to our forum, or to Twitch chat. I'll try to follow that one as well. So yeah, I think I'm just going to fold most often in the table number 2 against the 3-bet. This guy has only been 3-betting twice. Once from 3 opportunities that he has had, so I shouldn't be making too many thin 4-bets, I think, because who knows if this villain might actually just 3-bet very tight range. So I don't actually like this 4-bet too much, but when he calls out 4-bet, his range is usually very broad card heavy. It could contain like ace jack, ace queen, king queen, king jack. Those are the maybe like 9s, 8s, but those are the most common hands to see, mostly the Broadway hands. So this flop is actually very bad for our hand, even though we have a lot of backdoor flush draws and straight draws. I would actually like to see myself check here, and we could have queens or ace jack, maybe ace jack, I don't know, queens or hand like that. We would play the same way. So checking is the best option in my opinion here. Begin with the check and then evaluate on the turn. Yeah, checking. Turn pass a 7. This is actually a pretty good card for us, not only because we turn a flush draw, but also we could have some sevens in our range. Definitely in our forbidden range. Sometimes we could have 7-5 just as easily as we have 9-7 and 9-5, and we could have like ace-7 offsuit or queen-7 offsuit or something. So it's actually pretty good card for us, and I'd like to see myself bet here. Neo asks why we play Zoom poker instead of normal tables, and the reason is pretty much that it's pretty hard to get action at the normal tables. Most of the villains, if you sit them, the bum hunters or the quote-unquote regulars, they usually just play like 4 to 20 hands, if any, and it's pretty annoying to record a session when you only play like 10 hands at a time versus one villain. And Zoom is pretty nice. It runs fairly well at the very lowest stakes. It runs like almost always. So you basically get action all the time, and you just get to record the session you play as it is, and you don't have to pause and restart the or resume the recording. So that's the reason we are playing Zoom. And if you want to have a heads-up cash game poker session, coaching sessions, they are mostly going to be Zoom, just because of how the action goes, or how the action is at the regular tables. At the table number 1, I would actually prefer making a bit bigger continuation bet, because this flop texture is one that I don't see but too often. Now that we have a gut shot and a backdoor flush draw, I'm definitely going to see bet, but I would like to use a bit bigger sizing. On this turn, I don't expect to get too many folds. If he has an 8 or 6 that he called the flop bet with, he's definitely not going to fold on the turn bet. So I would just like to see myself check and then see what happens on the river. So hopefully betting on table number 2 and checking in table number 1. I could bet a bit smaller. This turn card, I don't have too many flush draws. So by betting, I mostly rep a 7. That's pretty much the only hand I could play for value like this. So I think checking is most likely the best play. Yeah, on table number 1, this would be a bit too thin of a value bet, because he could play a 8 easily like this. I could have flushes also, so he wouldn't bet 8s himself. So I don't think if a 6 is going to call us often enough for us to bet. So hopefully checking in both of these tables. I was actually, Deja asks why my avatar is a dog, and why not the Johanna Tukiainen, the very famous Finnish scumbag. And the reason is I actually tried to have pocket aces, like the revealed whole cards as my avatar, but it is not possible. Stars contacted me and told me that you are not allowed to have like confusing avatars such as whole cards as your avatar anymore. So I thought that having either a baby or a dog would be pretty sweet, since I really don't like having a grease flag as I have on other sites, because you can actually see the location pretty easily. And I actually searched it for the or googled for images with the um, with some baby pictures, but I couldn't find proper ones, so I just took a dog. I think that's pretty sweet. And yeah, Arnimet, that's what I was planning to say, but my English is not good enough to say that uh, smoothly. So yeah, Danny, that would be a good one as also. He actually called my 4-bet with the 10-7 offsuit, which is quite something. And I actually like his line quite a lot. Post flop. Check calling in table number 1. And value betting myself on the river, hopefully. And I'm bet folding. Most opponents just don't see but 3x hands enough. So it's a pretty easy value bet on the river. Pretty standard. I would actually, I guess I have folded in table number 1 just because my opponent has only opened once out of his 2 buttons, and even though it doesn't mean that he's definitely a tighter SB player, but it's a bit more likely, so I just wanted to fold against 2.5x open. I don't like folding my big blind, so that's why I have to explain every fold I make. I actually got a pretty big number of flirting comments by foreign villains when I used the Johanna Tukianen avatar, and there's actually one video clip in Finnish in YouTube where during a coaching someone told me something like "Hey sexy," so that's pretty sweet. You rarely get any comments like that with a dog avatar. Someone once asked me whether this was my dog or not, but that's just about it. I'm definitely going to see bet in table number 1, and on paired flops with an ace on it in 3-bet pots, I usually make a pretty small c-bets. So when my 3-bet was $5, I'm going to like at most $4, maybe even smaller. We are like 120 big blinds deep before the flop, so maybe like 4 seems to be a good sizing here. If it was ace 9 deuce with 2 diamonds, then I would go $5 or something. I got raised here on the flop, which is pretty sweet, because if he's thinking regular, he shouldn't have any reals like ever. He shouldn't raise 9x hands here, because it's too likely that I just have nothing. So, and he definitely should not raise worse ace-x hands here. So he's either gonna have a flush draw, which I would never raise in this pot, unless I knew that the 3-better, which is me now, folds way too much against the raise. So then I would raise as a bluff sometimes, but against the thinking regular, which I consider myself to be, I would never raise in this pot. And yeah, so I think he's most often gonna have like bluffs, total bluffs. Maybe like king, queen jack with 1 diamond, or queen jack of spades or something. It could be anything, but he shouldn't have too much. And when he's mostly gonna be just full of himself in this pot, I'm definitely just going to call, because most often they just fold against a click back. Sometimes against a very passive opponents, I just mean 3-bet here and try to get a like 100 big blind donation, but I don't do that too often because most often they just fold. So I'm just going to call and make a call down most often. Let's see his notes, whether there's something that helps us. Didn't see that. Yeah, not too much related to T-spot, so just going to call, hopefully. Yep. Card I don't mind. We turn a flush draw, so we have outs against 9x hands, which he shouldn't have. Sometimes he turned a flush, but it's pretty rare. Now that he checks the turn, this is a spot where he still shouldn't have anything. Maybe he turned a 4, or maybe he just knows that, well, I could easily float the flop with anything, just to bluff later, because he shouldn't have anything. But I think he most often thinks that we do have an ace or something good. So I actually think that I should check on the river, because he shouldn't have anything, and if he turned a 4, he's not gonna call my bet either way. And if he has nothing like the queen jack, he might bluff. Not often, but I don't think he's gonna call as often as he might bluff. So I would check here. He would have to raise a worse ace-x hands on the flop for value for us to bet here, and that's not gonna happen, I think. So hopefully I just passed me checks here. I have a bad feeling that I have bet like tiny bit, like $9. Yeah, that's it. Well played. Good check. He's not gonna have a... Yeah, he turned a 4, which is like the best hand he's gonna have in this pot, I think. I'm just gonna mute my... I don't know if you hear this or not, but I'm gonna mute my phone. Let's see if I know how to... On the table number 1, I would just like to fold, because this is a spot where he's gonna have a lot of pairs, 1 pair hands or better, or he has a draw very often. Because if I check this flop, I'm pretty often gonna have a pair. So most often these weak regulars slash fishy type of players. They don't bluff on this spot too often. So I would actually see, even though we have one pair, our equity is not that great against his range. So yeah, I would like to see myself fold the very worst hands, and this is pretty much the worst hand than a worse pair than we can have. So yeah, folding the turn might be best. Let's see if I can. You guys get to see some finish. How do I? There's no. I can't, like, I just have to jump like this, I think. So raising in table number 2, definitely. This is a spot that I used to check a lot in when I raise a limper, but nowadays I just bet more with a 2 overs and a flush draw, because my hand checking is, the point with checking is that I'm kind of turning my hand in a bluff catcher, but I think that I get bet against too often for multiple streets, and I actually don't like check calling for multiple streets. Thank you, Danita. So I think betting myself and barreling on many turns and maybe reverse is better than just check calling when we have equity. I don't even like check calling versus a pot sized bet, which might sometimes happen from a bluffing type of hand. So even if he bets $3 on the turn, I don't like to call too much. 350, yeah. I just don't like this spot. I'm often just going to fold the best hand, and yeah, that's not fun. I'm checking down in table number 1, hopefully. I don't know what I'm betting for. I'm betting for value, definitely, but I don't know if I should. He's a bit tighter player pre-flop, so that might indicate that he's gonna be a tighter player post-flop. So maybe I'm just getting check called if I'm behind. This is a bit too thin. Even with pocket fours, it would be a better bet because he's gonna call with better 3x hands. So hopefully I'll be checking in table number 1 and folding in table number 2. The red label means a good regular. The green label means a weak regular or bad regular. The, I don't know what this color is, light blue or something. This is a unknown player that I have some type of note about, or note of. Dark blue is a total fun player, and the yellow player is a nit. Then I have some purple colors labels as well for players that fold too much against 3-bets or fold too much against, yeah, mostly 3-bets. So this guy should definitely not have a red label, and I'm pretty sure that by now I have changed it, although I don't play too much in these games anymore. I haven't played since February or the beginning of March. So I usually just auto label guys with less than 100 big blinds and with one table open. On table number 2 this villain limp raises, and I remember this guy, he does this a lot, and he does it with random, very random range. So, but the limp raise was pretty small. He limped, I made it $2 and he made it $4.5. So definitely not going to fold pretty much any hand I raise with. Then I'm just checking this flop and hoping to get a free turn card or cheap one. Against a half pot bet with a pair and a gut shot, I pretty much have to call once. If I had like 10-9 I would fold, but 10 jack is too strong to fold because of the gut shot outs. And yeah, I'm not gonna bet on this river either. And I should never win in a showdown if he knew what he did. I'm willing to say that he has 9s, not because it makes sense, but because I think I somehow remember this hand, but I really don't know. Yeah, he had 9s. So this was 2 months ago, so I actually don't remember too many of these hands, but that was such a weird one that for some reason I remember. So in table number 2 we face a limp, so hopefully giving a blue label against this guy and playing post flop with that assumption. I haven't seen him limp bet or anything, so I just bet the pot myself. This question, I'll bring the chat visible to you guys. There was also a question on Twitch chat or comment, but it was already asked by the staff. Neo has a general question about post-flop bet sizing, mainly flop. When do you deviate from half-pot bet sizing? And do you have a size flop bets that the same in tourney and cash game? I usually bet bigger in cash games because the stack sizes are bigger. It's really about the stack size, effective stack sizes that matter the most. And therefore my bet sizes are bigger in cash games usually. In seed and goes I mostly use half a pot c-bet, but in cash games I either bet, well, sometimes I bet bigger in heads up seed and goes too, but Yeah, I usually my more general or the bet sizing I use the most often is half a pot in sit and goes and 3/4 in cash games. And the other things apart from bet, effective stack sizes that matters the most is the um, bet the flops texture. So on, let's say 10 9 8 with two hearts, that's the flop I'm usually going to bet less often than an average flop. And when I bet on some flop less often I want to use a bigger sizing. And an example from the other side would be the, let's say, ace 8 3 rainbow, which is a flop that I almost always see it, very often at least, like 90% maybe, or 80 something at least. So when I see bet something that often, I want to use a smaller sizing in that case. So hopefully that answers to your question. And feel free to post other ones if you come up with ones. That actually looks pretty weak in table number 2, but I don't like to see it. Yeah, laughing to Colin's question or comment. I don't like to see it on table number 2, and the king is pretty much the worst card in the deck, so I'm just going to fold the pair without putting any money in the pot post flop, which is something that doesn't happen too often, but now it had to. Pretty sweet situation in table number 1, because on this turn when we barrel, we are almost always gonna have air, some like a draw or some kind of no pair hand. So when we actually turn a pair, a top pair, it's very good spot for us. So I'm just going to bet this turn and bet most rivers as well. And the 6 is actually, I don't know about this river. We shouldn't have any 6x hands, so it's not about that. Well, we don't have too many 6x hands. That's what I'm trying to say. But that's not the problem about with me betting. That's actually a very good thing for a very good reason for us to bet, that us betting, we don't represent too much. The only problem is that he has quite a lot of 6x hands. Yeah, I think I need to bet this. Well, I don't know. Let's see. He has more 10x hands than he has 6x hands. He might call with a 3 also. And he's definitely going to call with pocket 7, so I think he's 3 betting ace 8s plus. I think we need to bet this river, but not too big. Like $6. I'm fine with checking as well, but
yeah. His check call is actually on the river. Um, we most often have air when we play it like this, or and the I don't know if I'm not going to call with king queen or queen 9 in this spot if he check raises. So his check raise would actually be pretty thin. So with 6-7, I think his check call is fine. With like king 6 is king 6, I would check raise in his shoes, if that idiom translates to English as easily as I think it does. Carleon asks whether I would go bet $6 with a busted draw in table number 1. I wouldn't bet a busted draw in table number 1 just because if I have 2 hearts in my hand, it's more likely that he doesn't, and when he doesn't have 2 hearts, that often he's gonna have more 6s and more 10x hands compared to the other hands in his range. So therefore with 2 flush blockers I wouldn't bet on the river there. But it's possible that he would have like king 3 of hearts or ace 4 of hearts when he check calls the flop and check calls the turn. So therefore I would bet some of my like 5-4 I would bet, and I don't know if I would bet $6. Maybe, yeah, I think I would, because he's not gonna fold if he has a 10 or a 6. He's not gonna fold to a $10 bet, and the hands that fold to a $10 bet most often fold to a $6 bet as well. So I think I'm only gonna have one sizing on the river in this spot, as I do in most spots, and I think $6 is pretty much what I want to bet here. Let's see where here. Neo asked whether this was actually asked in YouTube earlier. States that I mostly use min raise pre-flop in sit and goes. Yes, I do, and in cash games, yes, I do. Wondering if it would be better to use bigger sizings versus bad players at sometimes. Yeah, against a very fishy players that always call regardless to our bet sizing, it would be better to use bigger sizings with bigger hands, but I actually don't end up getting that info too often, because if I get dealt say pocket aces against a villain or a fun player, I usually just min raise if I have min raised before, because I really don't want him to fold, and I don't want to. I think it's just easier to min raise in every spot. If he's gonna give you a lot of money too easily, he's gonna do it the $1 difference or the 50-cent difference pre-flop that you might be thinking about is not that relevant. You can just adjust by both post-flop bet sizings, which I do quite a lot. and it's easier than trying out different preflop sizings, in my opinion. So I don't do that too much, but I'm not saying it should be never done. On table number 2, yeah, we continuation bet once and then call the river bet. So pretty standard, I think. I'm pausing again for some reason. Most likely typing down yeah, I'm typing down the note about the 6-7 hand. I tried to jump the 10 seconds, but nothing happens. Oh. Okay, no. I think I definitely want to bet in this table number 1. I would turn some of my very worst reels as a bluff as well. So I want to bet for value. I mean, well, yeah, I don't. If he, yeah, I think he continuation bet the flop. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so he continuation bet the flop, and then the turn went check check. So he actually shouldn't have too many good hands, and we actually have a lot of one pair hands. And then when we check this river, he might decide to bluff on this card. So I don't mind checking. I actually think this is better than betting myself. I actually misread or misunderstood the situation, and if I had even like 10-9, I would not bet myself here, because I'm going to win in a showdown too often. This is actually a spot where I almost never bluff in, or I don't bluff often enough actually. And the times I bluff, his range is going to be straights and air, and if he has air, I think he's going to fold against a min raise, or almost like min raise. And if he has king, he's obviously not going to fold ever. So I think we can just use very small raise sizings. He could have like, yeah, Colin asked whether villain can value bet like Jack 10 plus. I think Jack 10 is going to be a bit too thin, but definitely like Ace 10 plus, maybe. So therefore, that's also one reason why the smaller raise sizing is better, because he might fold those hands against. He's gonna have like elastic calling range. He's gonna fold those hands against $12 raise, but maybe call $7. So $7 is the sizing I would go actually in here. And this is too big of a sizing, definitely. Bit too big. $7 to $8. I don't know why I would bet bigger. And I actually decided to insta 3-bet with air, which is sweet. That doesn't happen too often. 40 big blind gift. And I actually don't like his flop c-bet at all. It's the thing is that, okay, we don't have sets plus. We could have like, we don't even have
we could have king jack sometimes, maybe like king jack offsuit, when we just flat call pre-flop. So even you either decide that okay, 6-3 has such a poor equity that you want to just give up, or then you choose to 3-barrel. Yeah, those are the options in my opinion. So I really hate his line regardless the river spaz. And I really think it is a spaz because I could easily have like all king x hands. With the king 8 I'm probably going to call the flop. Yeah. And Kaleon states the same, that he thinks that villains should go for multiple barrels if he wants to bluff. So not much happening in these hands, just check calling and checking checking the turn in table number 1, and now betting myself. What does he have though? He shouldn't have like king x. Maybe I should check here. Let's see. He shouldn't have king x hands. Most of them should bet on the river, on the turn himself, to protect against a big number of draws possible in this pot. He shouldn't have too many ace-x hands. Maybe like the ace-x hands that he does have often beat us. They would be like ace-9, maybe ace-7. So I actually think that I should check here again and let him bluff, because he's not gonna call us too often, and checking seems to be by a clear margin the best option. Colin actually makes a good question about whether I would check raise the turn, and it would totally depend on his sizing. If he bets half a pot, then yeah, I would check raise. If he bets like 3/4, maybe on like the jack of hearts that brings a flush draw, I think maybe yeah, it's closer against bigger bet sizings, but against the smaller ones I would definitely check raise. Yeah, I don't know. I think I would check raise most often. It's close though. Against the smaller sizings definitely, and against the bigger ones maybe just check calling. And I would like to see myself check here, but I know it's not gonna happen. He's not gonna have ace-x hands too often. Well, actually this guy has been folding against the turn bet. So skipping the flop c bet and then folding on the turn versus the bet. He has been folding quite a lot, which actually might mean that he's going to c bet 9s and 7s too often, or like every time he has any pair. So therefore he might have some of those, but I don't think he's going to call them too. And yeah, I would check the river myself as well, as Kaleon states in chat. this session was played at night, maybe like 2 a.m. or 1 a.m. So I might not, or I'm definitely not. We saw it last week in Finnish coaching that I'm not playing my A+ game at the moment, so that's something. Pretty standard in table number 1, and checking this down. Hopefully, yeah. I actually don't like his bet on the turn too much. And he has a green label for a reason. He's not gonna get too much value. I'm going to check this flop because I have a better real. I'm not gonna. I don't know if I'm gonna call with Ace X on the turn often enough. I don't think so. I would think that with such a weak hand, he's better off just checking the turn. Now, excuse me, I'm gonna get something to drink. So maybe like 30-second break. Okay, let's continue. It's nice that there's color commenting on my hands, so I don't have to speak just by myself. I raised a limp in table number 2, and I opted to check call this flop because it would be pretty thin of a value bet on the flop actually, and I don't actually want to be raised, so I think check calling is fine. Not a play I make too often, by the way, but I usually just bet. Jack 10 is pretty good jack, or pretty good middle pair. So I'm not sure whether check calling or betting. I think betting might easily be the better option, but I don't hate my bet by any means. I'm pretty good turn card for us, so I'm just going to check raise here. He bets very small. I'm just trying to get it in. Yep. And that's a shame. Nothing special in table number 2, just betting and betting the river also. Again, a card I don't bet too often on, so prefer a smaller sizing. I was wondering what the heck was going on, but this was when I got my my new computer, and I had some troubles with activating my Windows, so there was a error message about that.
Neo asks about if you would have weaker hand like Jack 5 or stronger hand like Ace Jack. Well, I would pretty much always bet with better hands and check with worse hands. Just because I thought that Jack 10 is quite close to the borderline value bet. Like pocket 10s are clearly too weak to bet, and Jack 10 is pretty close. So every like Ace Jack is pretty easy hand to bet for value, I think, and Jack 5 is I would check call as well. So good question. We have reviewed 18 minutes of coverage already. So that's not a lot in 1 hour, but yeah, check calling twice, pretty standard in table number 2. And on this river card, would have I called a bet against a clearly very tight small blind range? Like when he has opened once out of 3 buttons or twice out of 6. Yeah, twice out of 6 I think is more likely. He's almost never going to have like 90% small blind VPIP. I think it depends on the sizing. The third club is not great, so therefore I would have folded, I think, against a somewhat bigger bet. Like, yeah, and actually this river card is pretty good for him to bet on, because I do have some 6s, I do have some turned 3x hands, so he would actually get a bunch of, and if I'm evaluating whether to check call with Jack 10, then I'm definitely folding enough hands in this pot for him to barrel, and he has 8 high and like almost no relevant blockers. Like 5 is somewhat relevant, but I think this is a very easy river bet for him. Folding seems weak in table number 2. It's close against the 3x. This is actually a spot where I opted to check in table number 2. But this is actually a spot where I have been betting quite a lot recently, because even though I have middle pair, I have quite a weak middle pair, and there are plenty of overcards to our 5. I don't know if it's relevant enough, because we can just call every single turn bet anyways. So yeah, I don't mind checking. I don't actually, to be honest, I don't know whether checking or betting is better, and it's very much player dependent. And this guy actually haven't bet on the turn against my script, or missed flop c-bet. He hasn't bet once, not once, but so against this guy, checking might actually very easily be the best option. And by betting, I would often just bet 3 times. Well, I don't. Yeah, I think I would. Yeah. I don't like that option too much either though. So checking is fine. And that now I'm betting this turn card. Why do I not bet this turn card? I shouldn't have straights too often, so he's not gonna fold a5 or a4 or any ace obviously. He shouldn't have too random cards with one club, because those would most often just bet. So I think betting is better. This villain check raises me in table number 1. This is his first check raise, and he check raises a flop where he could have all flushy, all sets and some straights. So even though I have 2 overs and a gut shot, I think I just have to fold here. Now I'm betting. Yeah. I often hear statements that if you bet here, you are better off betting the turn because there's a draw and you want to get value from the draws. And in this very spot, it's not too relevant because he shouldn't have too many draws. Those would very often bet by themselves. So if he has a draw, it's often a pair and a draw, or like king high. And those hands would call my turn bet. So I would actually bet just purely for value, not because of projection. Not only for that, at least. I actually made a mistake. I bought a washing machine today and it's running or washing or something, how do you say it, I don't know, at the moment, and I really shouldn't be washing anything at this hour, at these hours anymore, because it's late and my neighbors might not like it. But I had no clue how long the programs take, and I thought it might have took less than 1 hour, but clearly doesn't. It looks like it's about to finish, so it's not too bad, but this is actually a pretty good example of the flop texture that I almost always see it. So I on the table number 2, so I definitely want to use smaller sizings. Neo asks whether the 5-4 deuce or 5-3 deuce rainbow, whether the c-bet was good or not, and I think it is close, but I think we get plenty of, well, I think it's good. We get king x hands to fold. Ace x hands are not going to fold, but on the flop, but there are plenty of turn cards. Like any card bigger than 5, we are going to barrel on. So we can often just bet 3 times ourselves and get bunch of folds. So I think betting the flop is definitely fine. Yeah. So yeah, I think betting is the better option. Pretty standard bet on table number 2. Let's think about my sizing. When he doesn't bet on this ace, he is very often going to have some kind of showdown value, so 9, 8 or 3 or something. Mostly 9s or 8s. And king is such a bad card for them, because I could have like ace x or a bunch of ace x and king x hands. So if I want to bet, I think this is the correct sizing. I want to bet? Yeah. I think I do, yeah. Maybe he folded a 9 or 8, maybe. Might have. So again, in table number 1, I don't see better turns too often on these paired textures. I don't know about his sizing though. Because in these spots I have been using pretty small sizings, like half a pots in his shoes. Because most of my range is going to be hands like this. Flop, c-bet bluffs, and then that gave up on the turn. So why bet this big? I don't know. I think it's just not optimal. I'm running out of voice again. I have had the flu for like 3 months. Not 3 months. Maybe like 3 weeks, I meant to say. I check called on the flop. Is it right? Yeah. And I don't know. I don't know about my check call here. I know that monotone boards are the type that only get c-bet on ones very often. And I think that I have check raised. I know that I used to check raise these turns a lot, and I don't like my line at all. Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't like it. I might be just best of. Yeah, the flop call is fine. The float slash. I almost always have some equity with 1 over and a flush draw, but against the turn bet I think even on this card folding might be the best. Foxcatcher states that heads-up zoom must be sick to grind, but I know people are having 14 big blind win rates. I don't know at these stakes. The very best regulars might have. I played quite a lot, maybe like, I don't remember exactly, but maybe like 25 or 30,000 hands in February, and I had like 8 big blind. 8 big blinds per 100 maybe. At heads up zoom that month, so 14 sounds a lot. Okay, 100,000 hands, that's not, that could happen. But if you are like 8 big blind per 100 a winner, you can easily, I think you can pretty easily have a run like that. I haven't run the simulations, but I would think that's possible. But if your real win rate is 14 big blinds per 100, and that's quite a lot, and then you actually you are better off moving to bigger stakes or higher stakes, and yeah, the rake is actually going to decrease, so you might be able to keep close to the same win rate over there as well. So 15 minutes, so feel free to ask questions. Yeah, I thought I would check raise here, and I don't like it. Not too much. This is not a turn spot that I get check raised too often on, and I'm waving my mouse like crazy like this, and that's all. That's a sign when I realize that I played a hand bad. I always do that. Luckily I don't play that bad too often, but yeah. I'm typing notes for some reason. Maybe I'll still teach or something. Well, that's, yeah. So this Viki guy on the table number 2 definitely doesn't reserve a regular tab. He's either a nit or he's a nit or bad regular or yeah, there we go. Waiting for premiums is basically what the text next to a label meant. Neo asks whether there are some adjustments people should make when coming from normal cash game or heads up sit and go to Choom. And well, sit and goes and cash games play quite differently, but when you come from normal tables to Choom, I don't think there are adjustments. The games play pretty similar. It just takes longer to get data, and the meta game is a bit different, but I don't think the adjustments that need to be done are too big. Not much happening. Pretty standard spots. If I had a better jack, I would have bet on the table number 2. And then I get a 10 pots. 10 times a pot shove on the river, and I'm not going to call with this hand. I'm just typing down notes. I would need 2 pair and maybe not even any 2 pair to call with this hand in this spot. I 3-bet in table number 1 and pretty good flop for our hand. And we are just going to shove on the turn and hope he has some kind of a hand to call us with. Table number 2, it's a more interesting one, and we need to decide whether to c-bet the turn or not. And when turn brings another flush draw, I usually just call. I was reading his action and read it out loud. I usually just bet the turn also and check the river. Almost always in this spot. Yeah. Well, yeah, I think checking the river most often. Neo asks another question about flop bet sizing when drop is try like ace-9 deuce but has a flush draw. Is that the reason to change sizing? I don't change it too much. A bit, but not too much. Yeah. Also, how do you know on later streets if opponent is likely to have a flush draw when a flush draw completes? Well, you just kind of have to think about the flop texture and just think whether that's a texture that regulars usually check raise flush draws on, and you also it's always somewhat player dependent. Some players play or like check raise always with a flush draw, and some players never do. And some players play it like I do, so they check raise it sometimes, depending on the flop sizing and flop texture, and kind of the bit depending on the villain's bet sizing as well. So usually just a guessing game, and you can't ever know for sure. Well, very rarely you know for sure, but you just have to guess. You just have to guess. So I got a call in table number 1 by some hand. Ace-8, okay. Pretty standard. 50 big blinds deeps, I would play the same. when turn brings another flush draw. I think there are plenty of draws, so ace 8 might be a good enough hand for him to call. So 10 more minutes. Nice to see that Neo is active. So I don't have to talk completely by myself. So do you have any comments about Finnish election on Sunday, or the Finnish ice hockey league finals that started, or do you have any jokes or riddles or poems, or if you have anything, you have just feel free to post. Did we face a 4-bet? This is actually, we are 130 something big blinds deep, and his 4-bet is quite a big one. He has been 4-betting some, but he also doesn't open, he only opens 67%. I think I would just like to see myself call here. Well, I don't know. I don't know how bad can a shove be. We get a fold so often, and he's gonna have ace king so often. Should I be 5-betting small? I could 5-bet like 22 or 21. Yeah, I think I would like to see myself 5-bet to like $21 to induce some random 6-bet shoves by ace-x hands mostly. Because if he's only going in, I think shoving is not the best option. If he's only, because he's not 4-bet calling with 10s or 9s this deep, I don't think, by any chance. So if he's only calling our 5-bet shove with, let's say, ace king or ace queen and maybe 10s plus, well, jacks plus or something, maybe ace king and jacks plus, but against a smaller 5-bet he might 6-bet shove some bluffs. Then we actually end up getting the same amount of money in, but with much better average equity. So I hope I have made a smaller 6-bet, no 5-bet. Neo has another question. In sit and goes and cash games, I guess it could be the same. What is a good range to stack off pre-flop versus good player or fisher player or unknown? Well, it depends a lot about stack sizes. In sit and goes, you sometimes have like 20 big blinds deep. You have like 20 big blind effective stack sizes, so you are going to stack off pre-flop with very wide ranges compared to if you have cash games and you have like 300 big blinds deep. You are not going to stack off with queens in most scenarios. So the stack sizes is the important factor, and also it depends whether your villain is very loose with his stacking offs or whether tight one. So it's hard to give a exact answer to that question, but it's mostly dependent about stack sizings and your villain. And the sit and goes and cash games, they play 50. If both were 50 big blinds deep, they play pretty much the same, or exactly the same. Yeah, I don't like shoving. Please don't shove. I kind of hope I get punished by. He seems to be tanking and tank calling, so I don't know what that means. Okay, ace king. Well, that's his most likely single hand, because it has 16 combinations and the pairs only have 6. So it's about the time we are quitting. If you have any final questions or comments, feel free to post. It seems like, yeah, I changed the table because I ran out of time bank, I think. I think this is good time to end this session. Let's see these hands as the final ones. I would actually like to see myself c-bet bigger in table number 1, because we are 200 big blinds deep, so even $5 it's not too big in this pot. So yeah. Not much happening in the chat either, so thank you for tonight's session. Thank you for Neo and Carleon for the activity and the other ones. And next week will be in Finnish, and week after that I'll try to arrange. It might be a Thursday is not good for me, so let's see whether we can change the session for another day or whether we have to skip that. But for that, until that, I wish you the best of luck to the tables, and see you then. Bye.